Hi, and welcome to part 2 of PLMA's special 3-part report, Recession and Recovery. What's ahead for store brands? Well, whatever the impact of the economic crisis on consumers, manufacturers and retailers across the board have been trying to keep pace with their shoppers, yet at the same time maintain their own profitability. It's not always an easy task, and with me today is PLMA President Brian Sharoff to talk a little bit about just that. Now, Brian, how do you see companies have responded in the past to economic downturns?
Well, this is really a wonderful question because if you look back maybe to the big inflation recession of late 1970s, retailers were extremely concerned about what to do to respond to consumers. The box store was created, limited assortment stores, mostly in the Midwest, in a way to help consumers who did not have a lot of extra money to spend. So generics were born, the black and white products.
In the 70s.
Yeah, in order to meet the consumers during a period of recession.
I remember those boxes, very plain, very simple.
Yeah, and this was completely intended to solve the problem of consumers with a lack of funds to spend. In the later recessions, 1980s and 1990s and 2000, you don't really have that kind of major change in the way consumers are shopping, and therefore retailers did not respond as aggressively. There are other things that happened. New formats were created, but basically you have to go back to the 1970s to see how retailing changed dramatically in order to help the consumers.
So pretty much we've been building on that one change that happened in the 70s in order to build how they've responded in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
Well, in fact, that's correct, because by creating generics, retailers began to realize they no longer needed the national brands to motivate consumers to come into their stores. And as a result, the entire development of private label could be tracked back to those events in late 1970s.
But much better packaging.
Oh, sure.
Thank you so much, Brian, for being with us. For a look at what may be driving today's market, here's our in-house sage, Michael Sansolo, with his analysis.
Well, Jody, as we look at the changes that are happening to retail in the middle of this economic turmoil, it's as dramatic as what's happening to the consumer. Now, every time we go through periods of economic turmoil, the industry looks for ways for how are we going to recover both sales and profits. And there's a couple of interesting things happening right now that manufacturers really have to keep an eye on. For the most part, retail transaction numbers have been pretty steady. And in fact, basket size is basically what it had been before all this had happened. But with all the economizing by shoppers, retailers are seeing the price, the cost of the average basket declining. And so as they look for ways to build their profit line on lower sales, they're looking for ways to go to the back room and cut every possible cost they can find to be more efficient and more profitable than ever. To suppliers, this means there's going to be a lot of questions coming your way. Much as we saw happen in the 90s in the efficient consumer response period, we're going to be looking for retailers to be asking a lot of questions about the activities that are required to move a product from the point of manufacturer all the way to the store shelves. They're going to want to sit down with manufacturers to analyze all the steps in the supply chain to look for all those areas of inefficiency where they can easily make improvements without impacting the experience the customer has in the store. But in the store, we'll see changes too. As we've already seen, retailers are taking a hard look at their product assortment. They're looking at the number of SKUs they're carrying, and they're questioning especially those second and third tier brands that are on the shelf. So as we look to the future, we do have a lot of retailers talking about the role store brands will have on the shelf, and then what they'll do with the national brands opposite that. How many varieties will be offered? How many SKUs we'll see in the normal store? The bottom line is that all the changes that we're seeing from the consumer, all this emphasis on new value, on simplicity of shopping, all of that is going to play into the retail environment, and from the retail all the way up to the manufacturer. So looking into that crystal ball, This is going to be a period of a lot of questioning, a lot of efficiency, and a lot of work on making an already good supply chain operate with even more effectiveness and efficiency. Back to you, Jody.
Thank you so much, Michael.